The South is poor. Very poor. Just poor as hell, y'all. Of the 10 poorest states in the United States, only New Mexico, number 9, lies outside of Dixie. The only states below the Mason-Dixon line that are not in the bottom half in terms of median family income are Maryland, number 1, and Virginia, number 7. But hell, any Southerner knows that Virginia barely counts and Maryland sure as hell don't. Rednecks don't eat crab cakes. A redneck eats a reheated salmon patty made of his wife's contempt, and he likes it, by God. To hell with Maryland. The only reason they number 1 on the list is because that's where all the lizards what run this country hide their money. Talking about defense contractors, y'all. Wake up, America. But the point is that much of the South is an impoverished land of limited opportunity, which is honestly putting it nicely. Putting it not nicely would be to say that much of the South is an economically desolate shithole that's utterly bereft of hope and prospects. Home sweet home. What makes the situation even worse is that these parts of the South operate like black holes for poor people. They consume all light and are basically impossible to escape. You hear a lot of romanticizing about all the red dirt we got down here, but what people leave out is that shit turns to mud real quick. And despite what many of the songs of our people would have you believe, getting stuck in the mud ain't worth a damn. What the hell happened? Most people are generally aware that the South is the poorest region of the country, but how often do they consider the reasons for that? The fact seems to be treated largely the same way that most unfortunate facts about the South are treated. Oh well, the South, am I right? The rest of the country's expectations are so low that the attitude seems to amount to, well, of course the South is the poorest part of the country. It's the dumbest and the fattest, too. Who wants kombucha? People today essentially look at the South's issues and dismiss them with the equivalent of a hashtag. But why is the South so poor then? Well, hell, we don't know. We're comedians. What kind of damn book you think this is? One of them fancy learning type books? Goddamn, boy. There are scholarly articles and books by scholarly type scholar fellers that will provide a much better answer to that question than we can here. But what it basically comes down to is that war really fucked our shit up, y'all. It's kind of a whole thing down here. Now look, we were fighting for the wrong cause, and we needed and deserved to lose. You ain't gonna hear no war of northern aggression talk around these parts. We were being dicks, and we got dealt with. That's it. But, having said that, if you're looking for explanations for the South's economic woes in the intervening years, you have to acknowledge the impact of the post-war period. The entire economy of the region was based on slavery, and in our opinion, that's a fucking shame, a deep shame we still feel. Once the war ended and that quote-unquote peculiar institution was so righteously abolished by Honest Abe, millions of people in the South, including the freed slaves, looked around and just kind of went, well, now what? Turns out, that was one hell of a question. The Southern wealthy wasted no time in proving that a rich man doesn't have to legally own a poor man to subjugate and exploit the absolute shit out of him, and they substituted sharecropping and tenant farming to take the place of slavery in the South's fields. Listen, if any of you kids out there hearing me right now has thought to yourself, I think I'd like to be a sharecropper when I grow up. Don't do it. Don't be fooled by big sharecropping. It's no way for a man to live. The system led to an endless cycle of debt, borrowing money to survive until you get paid and can pay back the money you owed before, and then borrowing more money to survive until you get paid again to pay back the... Y'all get it. This is a cycle that will be painfully familiar to any poor person, Southerner or not. Y'all ever heard of payday loans? The new economic system, though a step up from literal slavery, was not kind to those on the bottom rungs. Meanwhile, agriculture was becoming more and more mechanized, and even terrible sharecropping jobs were disappearing. At the same time that people were plagued by those economic issues, white Southerners just could not stop being buttholes. It's something we continue to struggle with. Race relations were not ideal during the post-war years, with white Southerners constantly trying to pass new laws that would effectively treat free blacks the same way they were treated as slaves. Black Southerners, shockingly, were not altogether down with that. This led to constant tension and racial strife, and some pretty sweet music, often erupting in violence. Take all these factors together, and you have a region that's going through some pretty serious shit, and the simple fact is that the South has never fully recovered to this day.